Discover the sinister secrets of the Fenwick family, a haunted bloodline cursed for 300 years. Sarah Fenwick fought to keep her eyes open as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The night shift at the hospital had drained her. Each heartbeat thrummed in her ears like a warning bell. Lately, though, it wasn't just her fatigue gnawing at her but a darkness creeping into her home, rattling the foundation of her seemingly perfect life in Maplewood, Pennsylvania. As midnight approached, a sharp chill swept through the hospital, sending a shiver down her spine. She shook it off, attributing it to exhaustion. The Fenwick family had always been pillars of the community, but even the best facades could crack. Something wasn't right, and she knew it. It consumed her as she parked her car in the stillness of her driveway. Even the porch light flickered as she stepped inside, casting long shadows that seemed to claw at her from the corners. Days dragged on, and Sarah's unease grew. The whispers she thought were figments of her imagination twisted through her awareness like sinister tendrils. Get some sleep, she told herself, but every night, the weight on her chest became unbearable. This fear intensified when she found the locket in the attic. Coated in years of dust, the ornate surface felt deceptively warm against her clammy skin. As she opened it, the family crest glimmered sinisterly, and she discovered a brittle note warning of betrayal and bloodshed entwined with her bloodline. Surely, this was the superstitious mumbo-jumbo of a bygone era. With a dismissive wave, Sarah tucked it away. Just another relic, she told herself. Yet, the shadows seemed to thicken around her as the nights passed. Whispers slithered through the air like smoke, and that feeling of being watched gnawed at her sanity. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a reminder something was watching. As she delved through old family journals, a sickening dread pooled in her stomach. The stories of her ancestors painted a treacherous picture of betrayal, violence, and deceit, a malevolent spirit tied to the Fenwick name. They whispered for her to uncover the dark truth, and with each revelation, a choking grip tightened around her heart. Past tragedies connected themselves to present-day events of violence in the neighborhood. Those neighbors who once smiled now wore masks of deception. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The rattle of her doorknob sent icy spikes through her spine. The friendly faces she once cherished morphed into veils of intrigue and threat. Every visit felt like a whirlpool, drawing her deeper into an abyss of conspiracy. She felt engulfed in whispers, a symphony of blurred warnings swirling around her. The air thickened with dread, and courage became a fleeting memory. The shadows didn't just flicker now, they danced menacingly at the edge of her vision. Tonight, she resolved to confront this twisting dread looming over her family. Gripping the locket tightly, her pulse raced as the lights flickered again. The familiar, sinister voice echoed through the dark, calling her name in a chilling whisper. Cold overtook her, and she felt the locket pulse in her palm like a heartbeat of its own. A revelation hung in the air like a gunshot. What waited for her beyond the darkness? And who, among the neighbors she once trusted, would finally reveal their true selves? Sarah stood frozen in place. The whisper echoed, reverberating off the walls as if the very house shared in the warning. Her heart thudded loudly, drowning out the hum of the appliances around her. The shadows twisted and writhed, creating outlines that felt as if they could reach out and grab her. Clutching the locket, she took a shaky breath. Nothing had prepared her for this, not the journals, not the whispered warnings. Some instinct within her screamed to flee, to escape the suffocating air thick with tension. Yet, a flicker of defiance ignited. She had to confront the darkness, had to uncover the truth buried within her family's history. Show yourself, she shouted into the murky abyss, forcing her voice to be steady despite the tremor in her hands. The response was a crackle, like distant laughter, echoing through the silence. It sent a shiver down her spine. Trembling, she took cautious steps deeper into the foyer. The last vestiges of light flickered overhead, casting the world into chaotic shadows. Just beyond the threshold of the living room, she thought she saw a figure flickering between the dusk and the light, an anomaly that vanished the moment she blinked. Goosebumps prickled her skin. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, the weight of her family's legacy pressing down on her like an iron shroud. What did they want from her? A chill swept through her, and she realized it felt eerily familiar, like the cold creeping through her veins the first time she discovered the journal. Driven by an impulse fueled by desperation, Sarah headed back to the attic, the one place where secrets of the past lay entangled with her fears. The air grew heavier the closer she got, thick with anticipation and dread. As she reached the attic steps, she hesitated. An old, broken mirror in the corner caught her eye. Its cracked surface was like a portal to another world, muddled shapes leering back at her. She stepped closer to inspect it, the urge to break the silence growing unbearably strong. But then she heard a scratching sound, irregular and patient, like claws scraping against wood. It drifted above her, staying just out of reach. It pulled at her curiosity, combining fear with a morbid sense of thrill. What could be up there? The stories spoke of things that lurked, hidden from sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. Could it be a manifestation of her family's curse? Logic screamed at her to turn back, yet a part of her longed to know what resided in the hidden corners of her lineage. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the attic door. The air inside was stagnant, dust motes suspended like frozen spells in the moonlight. As she stepped inside, the scratching grew louder, mixing with a new sound, soft murmurs that wrapped around her like a web, words she could almost recognize. "Sarah, find the truth, who's there?" Her voice trembled, filled with urgency. The shadows seemed to respond, vibrating as if caught in an unseen gale. The locket pulsed anew in her hand, and with a flicker of light, a vision opened up before her, a glimpse of faces twisted in anguish, eyes filled with hatred and regret. They were trapped, just like her, in a cycle she could barely comprehend. And then, like a slap across her face, realization struck. The secrets weren't just in their past, they were coming for her, seeking a vessel to carry on the curse. She spun around, heart racing as she felt the weight of many souls pressing down, demanding her attention. In that moment, she knew the fight had only just begun. But as the shadows closed in, she felt a terrifying clarity: she was all alone in this. The haunting whispers were no longer distant, they surrounded her, and their meaning began to surface like a rising tide. What truth awaited her in the depths of the tragedy? And would she survive long enough to uncover it? The moment Sarah stepped into the attic, the door creaked shut behind her with a sinister finality, sealing her fate in a chamber thick with foreboding. Dust motes danced in the dim light, swirling around her like lost souls, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to face. "Sarah," the voice again, rising from the darkness, deep and echoing. It wrapped around her like a cold hand squeezing tighter, pulling her closer to the source. She turned slowly, scanning the shadows that deepened like an endless void. The scratching noise intensified, each sound now a clawed snarl against the wood, impatient, desperate. Whatever was up there wanted something from her, a truth buried beneath the debris of memory. "Find us," the voices grew louder, overlapping like chaotic whispers in a fever dream. The locket in her hand burned, hot against her palm, pulsing with urgency. The faces flashed again in her mind, contorted, yearning, and full of malevolence. They were trapped, just like her, caught in a web of despair. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "What do you want?" she shouted, desperation lacing her tone. Silence echoed back, oppressive and thick. Suddenly, in the periphery of her vision, she saw a figure stir among the beams overhead, a silhouette that could only be described as a dark omen. Panic prickled at the edges of her mind. "Breathe, just breathe." But the air was viscous, weighted, suffocating. She stumbled backward, her gaze darting, searching for a way to escape this nightmare. Would her name be added to the long list of the cursed Fenwick family? "Find the truth," the voice dropped, whispering directly into her ear, brushing against her neck like the chill of a grave. She turned sharply, but nothing was there, just the thermostat ticking like a metronome, counting down her sanity. Driven now by fear and an unbearable sense of urgency, Sarah rushed toward the edge of the attic. Her fingers gripped the edge of a table piled high with family relics, each item a testament to dark tales. A clammy breeze brushed against her, lifting the hair on her arms. Panic surged. Where was the exit? Then, she spotted an old trunk, a wooden box strapped with rusty iron and a faded inscription, barely legible. It might contain the key to her family's nightmare. With a resolve fueled by both dread and curiosity, she approached it, heart pounding like a war drum. As her fingers brushed the lid, the scratching turned into frantic clawing from above, like claws tearing through flesh. She froze, the sound magnifying, echoing her worst fears. It felt as if the house itself was alive, drawing breath, waiting. "Stop. Please." Her voice wavered, echoing around her as she wrenched the lid open. It snapped, dislodging a cloud of dust that danced in the air. Inside lay twisted pieces of yellowed parchment and odd trinkets, a rusted dagger glinting dully in the scant light, a bone fragment, and a series of faded photographs. Suddenly, the attic light flickered violently, plunging her into dark chaos. The whispers grew frantic, shouting now, a cacophony demanding her attention. "Help us! Release us!" Fear twisted in her gut as she rummaged through the contents. Her fingers grazed an item, a small, delicate locket that resonated with her own. The world around her shifted, as if drawing her deeper into the past of generations that had stained the Fenwick name. Just as her breath quickened, the shadows coalesced, forming features grotesque and filled with sorrow, faces she recognized from the visions. They reached for her, fingers outstretched, their eyes hollow, filled with longing and pain. Help us! This was bigger than her. This was the legacy, the burden of knowledge they couldn't escape. She recognized the twisted thirst for vengeance, and for the first time, fear coiled around her heart, locking her in place. With a final, frantic breath, Sarah turned to flee. But the attic door slammed shut, and the shadows surged forward, hungry for release. "You will find the truth. You cannot escape." The weight of their despair fell on her shoulders. Was she strong enough to face it? And deep within her, she realized the locket pulsed with history, and she was the next chapter in this cursed tale. What would she discover in the darkness now closing in? And could she withstand the truth that awaited her? The shadows lunged for Sarah, their specters twisting in sickening shapes, baring teeth that glinted like daggers in the gloom. Panic rippled through her body as she stumbled back from the now futile trunk, her heart racing. The bulk of despair bearing down on her felt tangible, like being trapped beneath a wave, forced to suffocate beneath its weight. "Stop!" she gasped, wheeling around, searching for a way out, a chance to escape this madness. The attic felt smaller now, claustrophobic, the vaulted ceiling pressing in. The sawdust-laden air tasted bitter on her tongue. She backed against the trunk, desperate to regain some semblance of control, yet the whispers swirled around her, taunting and shrill. "Find the truth," they cried, their wails echoing through the wooden rafters. One word spun through her mind over and over again, truth. With a shaky hand, Sarah reached for the rusted dagger. It felt alive in her grip, pulsing with the same heat as the locket she had discovered. In that moment, a thought flickered in her mind. What if this was her answer? What if the secrets buried in the Fenwick family could be carved out, one painful slice at a time? The weight of her bloodline felt like a chain around her ankles as her vision focused on the shadow manifesting into something more than darkness. It shimmered, grotesque and unnerving. The anguish painting its features was familiar. It was a mirror of pain reflected in the faces of those trapped within the locket. Desperate to understand, she stepped forward, gripping the dagger, heart pounding. "Tell me!" she shouted, the words tearing from her throat. "What do you want me to know?" In response, the figure lurched toward her, mouth agape, revealing rows of teeth that seemed to extend into infinitude. "Sacrifice," the voice echoed, as the attic vibrated with a sudden chill. Sarah felt ice crawl up her spine, freezing her very soul. "Sacrifice?" she repeated, barely able to process the word, trying to find anchor in the storm of noise around her. Then, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room with a jarring brilliance. Shadows shrank and retreated to corners, revealing the truth in fragmented horror. The photographs she had glimpsed were collections of faces, each marked by sorrow, each one familiar. Were they her ancestors? Each expression twisted and lost, with lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. A sharp pain pulsed in her chest as realization struck. They were all calling out, begging her for something they had never obtained: a release, vengeance, perhaps even justice. Was it right to leave them bound by their own mistakes, chained to resentments that spanned centuries? The dark figure hissed, drawing nearer, a malice that felt as cold as a grave. "You will choose," it bellowed, resonating like a siren-esque call. "Or become one of us." Time stopped. Sarah's breath hitched as she felt the weight of a looming decision. Sacrifice? Was this what the locket represented? The weight of a family history, shackled by echoes of the past. Suddenly, she understood. It wasn't just about uncovering their stories, it was about becoming part of theirs. She was meant to fight not just for herself but for them. Clenching the dagger tighter, she faced the specter. No. But what she didn't realize was that the attic was only the beginning. As the walls pulsated with their rage, a floorboard beneath her cracked wide, revealing an abyss that beckoned with a sinister allure. Join us. The shadows danced wickedly, enticing Sarah into a deeper, darker realm filled with secrets that threatened to claim her whole. What awaited her below? As the darkness swirled and anticipation dripped like thick honey, she wondered, would she conquer her fate, or would she become part of the Fenwick curse forever? She teetered on the edge of the chasm, heart pounding like a wild drum. The void yawned beneath her, thick and dark, the echoes of centuries whispering from its depths. It beckoned with promises of power, knowledge, and dread. The specter writhed, its shadowy form shifting like smoke caught in a breeze, urgency thrumming in its eerily elongated features. "Do you care for them?" The voice oozed from its mouth, a rancid echo that wrapped around her like fog. "They need you to choose, Sarah. You can't walk away. Not now." But could she? Could she walk backward into the ignorance she had lived her entire life? Memories flashed her mother's tears, the family gatherings whispered about behind closed doors. They had never shared the truth, buried like bodies in the old graveyard, covered over but never forgotten. "Join us." The shadows howled, darkness swirling around her ankles like tendrils reaching for a long-lost child. Bile rose in her throat. They sounded so desperate, yet so filled with malice. The faces in the photographs flashed through her mind, each one a thread in the tapestry she was now meant to unravel. "Release us," the specter hissed, inching even closer, shadows contorting into claws, grasping, begging. "The past is a prison, and you hold the key." In that moment, clarity pierced her mind like a dagger, a gleam of truth finally cutting through the turbulent fog. It was not just about making a choice, but understanding the weight of that choice. Was it possible she could find a way out for them, without becoming lost herself? "Show me." She thrust the dagger into the air, daring the shadows. The air crackled with ominous energy, shadows recoiling slightly, as if her defiance had taken them aback. "If I am to free you, let me see your past." The figure paused, and for the first time, its mouth, so ready to devour, turned into a semblance of a grin. "So be it." Light exploded from the dagger, a brilliant laser slicing through the attic's darkness. The shadows hissed and screamed, but the onslaught of brightness pushed them back, revealing outlines of what lay beyond the precipice. Flickering images swirled like a movie playing through the chaos, lives lived in agony, deeds sealed in blood, promises broken through generations, a family cursed to repeat mistakes over and over again. She saw a woman, pale and cold, sacrificing something precious on an altar of stone. The face was familiar, her own. Terror pulled her in, nearly dragging her into the abyss. No. That can't be. But it was her, eyes filled with despair as she plunged the dagger into the ground. What? What did she do? Panic swelled in Sarah's chest. Would she be forced into that very cycle? Reveal your heart's desire. The dark voice thundered, louder now, pulling her closer to the edge. Desperation dripped from its tone, a predator playing a game of candor. Only then can you decide the fate of your blood. Her heart raced as the visions twisted, morphing into a shapeless mass of guilt, regret, and unrelenting sorrow. With every heartbeat, the pain of those lost souls gnawed at her resolve. The dagger felt heavy, pulsing with the agony of the past, and she could almost hear their cries merging into a singular haunting melody. Choose. They screamed, a choir of sorrow echoing around her. Sweat beaded across her brow. She was at war with not just the shadows but with herself. Had blood really cursed her, or could she break the cycle? The dagger felt like both weapon and salvation in her grip. Choose or join us, they whispered, and somewhere deep inside, Sarah felt the grip of destiny tightening. As the shadows surged forth, rage and despair entwined in a vile dance, she didn't know if she could step back and escape the pull. Would she take a leap into the unknown, or would she finally dismantle the chain that bound her to history? In the very air, an answer lingered, but the truth threatened to drown her whole. Would she find liberation, or would her choice drag her into that eternal echo of despair waiting below? The light flickered perilously, and time bent around her stretched thin as she prepared to make the hardest decision of her life. The room trembled, shadows coiling tighter. What awaited her on the other side? The darkness seemed to laugh, and beyond reason, dread gripped her. Sarah, the whispers morphed into a single voice. Its time, fingers trembling around the dagger's hilt, Sarah steadied herself on the threshold of the abyss. Would she descend into madness, or would she rewrite her family's narrative once and for all? The shadows pulled back for a moment, and she took a deep breath, prepared to leap into the darkness. But something stirred in the depths, something more ancient and eager than the rest, a new voice calling her name, and suddenly, she understood there were worse fates than joining the cursed. But what lurked in the darkness beyond? What price would she have to pay to break the chains of the Fenwick legacy? The moment hung in the air, oppressive and thick as smoke. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. Time itself felt cruel, stretching and crashing against her resolve. The echoes of those trapped in the shadows teased her, a cacophony of despair and agony that rattled her core. Choose. They screamed again, urgency clawing at her insides. The whispers grew shrill, swirling around her like a cyclone, shadows bouncing on the walls, the faces of her ancestors flashing in and out of view. Every visage was a mirror to the pain she felt coursing through her veins, a reminder of her place in this harrowing story, yet, that familiar voice beckoned her still from the chasm. It sounded different now, richer and more textured than the others, a desperate plea wrapped in urgency. Sarah, come closer. You must understand. You must choose wisely. Or all will be lost. Breath caught in her throat. Could she trust it? The specter shifted, its dark eyes piercing through the light, and in that fleeting moment of clarity, she felt the pull of the dagger in her hands, a weapon forged in pain meant to sever bonds or sharpen fates. Who are you? She managed to cry out, voice cracking under pressure. What do you want from me? I am the answer, it replied, its tone softening like a whisper of wind. And the choice is yours to make. Do you wish to walk the path of freedom, or remain shackled to the past? The shadows trembled, vibrating with tension as if the very fabric of the night held its breath. Then, unexpectedly, the darkness coiled and shifted to form images around her. An altar rose from the murky void, creeping and expanding into the attic. Sarah's sensibilities shrank back as if it could reach out to her. No. She gasped, realizing this was not just some far-off nightmare. Those were ancient rite sacrifices implied through gestures, blood spilled upon stones, her blood sang through those stones. What price must I pay? She whispered, fear knotting in her stomach. Only that which you cherish most. The specter's voice dropped, almost conspiratorial. Your family, your safety, your will. As they spoke, the dagger pulsed with energy, a wicked rhythm that synchronized with the echoes of each sacrifice. The visions ignited her family's faces lit up in fire, twisted in fear, pleading for her decision. She could feel their panic anchoring her thoughts, weighing her down, her mother's warm embrace, her father's stern warnings, her sister's innocent laughter all slipping away. "Sarah, please." They grieved in unison, tears stung her eyes as hope and despair wrestled within. Her teeth dug into her lip as she fought against the tide. "What if I don't want to sacrifice anything?" She snapped at the dark figure, her spirit flaring in protest. "What if I refuse? Then the chasm will take what you hold dearest by force." It grinned, a satisfied malevolence curling at its lips. The ground trembled beneath her, as if the world were shifting to reveal the torment behind it all. The walls of the attic morphed, a twisted carousel of torment, tugging at her consciousness. Shadows danced around her like terrors come to life, clawing at her ankles, dragging her toward a fate she dared not imagine. Every sound echoed with the message, "Choose." The dagger's glow flickered, each flicker like a heartbeat urging her toward the unwritten conclusion of her family's bloodline. "Decide, Sarah." The voice implored. "Will you align with the past, or seize the future?" But how could she choose? The path before her split into possibilities, some bright and warm, others dark and somber. And in the burgeoning confusion, a revelation dawned. She could alter their fates, perhaps not just her own. Waves of realization crashed, and before she could fully comprehend it, she raised the dagger once more. "I will not be a pawn in this cursed game anymore." But the shadows roared back with fury, the encounter sharp, the air thickening. Would freedom come at a cost greater than her wildest fears? An unearthly silence settled momentarily, and just before she could plunge the dagger down, another sensation flickered in. Her mind a flicker of hope tangled with fear. What if there was a way to carry the weight of the past, rather than break under its pressure? As the shadows lunged, ensnaring her in a vice grip of terror, Sarah felt the answer just out of reach. The darkness wasn't merely about curses, it was about hope masked in suffering. Would she be able to unlock that secret, or would she become ensnared too? She gritted her teeth, her inner resolve solidifying. "I will find a way." She thought fiercely, and then, silence fell again, a hush of foreboding, as if the world awaited her next move. In a moment that stretched unbearably, she raised the dagger high, and as light crackled around her, she prepared to leap one last time into the unknown. But would this leap lead her to salvation or destruction, forever altering the legacy she had tried to escape? Light shone from the dagger, illuminating the space with a ghostly glow. Sarah could feel the gravity of her decision swelling around her, wrapping her in layers of thick dread and anticipation. Her heartbeat pulsed in time with the flickering light, a primal rhythm urging her to act. But what lay beyond that leap? Salvation or madness? With an instinctive motion, Sarah plunged the dagger into the altar formed from darkness. The moment it struck, a shockwave surged through her, a violent tremor that knocked her off balance. The shadows recoiled, revealing the true nature of the abyss, the faces, the screams. They all shoved against her mind, begging her to remember, to understand. Something in the darkness shifted. An image materialized in the suffocating gloom. It was a room, a parlor, richly adorned yet musty with age. In the center stood a mirror, tarnished and cracked, reflecting not just her image but fragments of memories she thought long buried. A young girl, perhaps 5, was playing with an old doll, its eyes bright and wide, an innocent smile upon her face. That little girl was her. "Sarah." The spectral voice hissed, emerging from the cracks of the mirror. "Do you see? Do you remember?" The ground beneath her feet shook with ferocity, and shadows spiraled up the walls, reaching out as if trying to pull her back into the depths. Panic bubbled in her throat, but she fought it down. "What are you trying to show me?" she cried, clutching the dagger, now warm from her touch. "Everything comes at a cost," it insisted, the voice now echoing, a chorus of whispers, her family, her friends, all trapped in the web of despair. "If you break the cycle, you can save them. But what will you sacrifice?" Visions raced through her mind, her father's laughter, her mother's warmth, the childhood innocence that now felt like a distant echo. They all suffered because she had run from the truth. It made her stomach twist, the realization that her own fear was the catalyst for their suffering, just as she was about to speak, perhaps to refuse the cycle, to profess her unwillingness to pay their price. The mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, each shard reflecting the horror of truth. She saw them all, the past generations of the Fenwick family, bound to the chasm, their faces warped in agony. It was a curse born of a choice, a promise broken years ago. No! She shouted, her voice strengthened by a surge of defiance. I can't accept this. I will not be their undoing. The shadows stirred violently, anger boiling over as it howled and shrieked, moments stretching in sinister laughter around her. Your will means nothing, child. Only one option remains. Either join them in torment, or what? She interrupted, her voice rising. What other choice do I have? Flashes of memories surged again, but this time they were clearer. Images of her family members as they had been before, unbroken, unyielding. With every heartbeat, resolve surged within her, igniting an unwavering need not only to survive but to save. Something shifted in her hold of the dagger. It pulsed warmly in her palm, a silent agreement forming between her heart and the ancient weapon. I won't cower anymore. I will fight for them. The remnants of her ancestors' pain morphed into a fierce determination. From the depths of her core, she felt a crack form along the weight of their suffering. A chance flickered, a flicker of hope again tangled with dread, urging her to connect with all that stood before her. Find the truth, Sarah. It is the key. The voice pleaded from the void, swirling the remnants of shadows into a daunting vortex. Claim it, and break the chains. The dagger flared with light, illuminating the attic. She felt the past and the present collide, a storm brewing within her, a surge of energy, pulling her toward the mirror shards scattered around her. In that moment, she realized, she did not have to choose one or the other, she could blend the light with the dark. What emerged might not be salvation alone, but it could be a pathway to redemption, a way to sever the curse that plagued her family. With newfound clarity, she stepped closer to the mirror fragments. I will confront this curse, she declared, the dagger raised high. I'll face the darkness, and whatever secrets lie hidden within. Suddenly, a silence washed over her, thick and heavy. The room grew still, the shadows pausing their restless twirling. But in the silence, she heard an ominous growl emanating from the depth of the shadows, a warning that the darkest hour was yet to come, and as she took another step forward, the very ground beneath her feet trembled, threatening to open again, a new choice looming before her. Would she embrace the legacy of the Fenwick family, or would it consume her entirely? The air quivered around Sarah as she approached the shards of the shattered mirror. Each fragment glimmered with an eerie light, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. The growl echoed again, louder this time, vibrating through her bones. She gritted her teeth and tightened her grip on the dagger, her knuckles turning white. The moment she touched one of the shards, a jolt of icy energy shot through her. Instead of a reflection, scenes erupted from the mirror, dark flashes of each ancestor's failure, their fear, their pain. Faces twisted in torment. She recoiled, wrestling with the flood of despair that threatened to drown her resolve. Look deep, Sarah. The voice wafted around her like a thick fog, pulling her attention outward. You need to know the truth, to unravel the curse. Only then can you save them. Just as determination reignited inside her, she was transported into a vision, a foggy graveyard swallowed by shadows. Tombstones loomed, tall and grotesque, each engraved with names she recognized, family, friends, those she loved. A chilling thought crept into her mind: what if exposing these secrets meant tracing back to her own demise? Is it worth the cost? The urging grew louder, melding with the thunderous heartbeat of the earth. She felt the dagger pulse again in her palm, surging with warmth, as if encouraging her onward. Step closer, it urged. Embrace your heritage. Let the darkness guide you. She moved deeper into the vision, drawn to a particularly crumbling tombstone. It was adorned with an intricate engraving, its letters worn and barely legible, Amelia Fenwick, born of darkness, bound to fate. As she crouched to examine it, a horrifying shift occurred. The ground beneath the tombstone trembled, fissures opening wide, and spectral hands clawed their way up, dragging agonized faces into her line of sight. These were her ancestors, trapped in the depths, seeking release. No. Sarah staggered back, eyes wide with terror. I won't let this happen. I won't join you. Their wails echoed like thunder in her ears. You have no choice. They screamed in unity. You carry our stain. You are the last hope to lift this curse. The cold claw of fear latched onto her heart. Could it be true? Was she truly their last chance? With every pulse of the dagger, the urgency to act surged, the shadows began to twist into figures, wretched images of the Fenwick family, each one stripping away their veils of despair, revealing the truth beneath. They were not merely victims, they were also the architects of their own demise, bound by heartbreak and betrayal. A choice made, a pact sworn, and so much lost. Face it, Sarah. The voice demanded, a furious storm erupting around her. You must know. You must decide, protect the future or repeat the past. The visions swirled faster now, weighing on her mind. Memories of laughter, love, betrayal, all wrapped in darkness. Panic flooded her mind. What piece of herself was she expected to sacrifice? Then came the silence again, an unnatural hush that sent prickles of terror climbing up her spine. In the midst of that silence, a shadow moved. A figure stepping forward, solid and menacing, its features obscured by shadow but its malice palpable. You meddled with things beyond your grasp, girl, it hissed, voice sharp like broken glass. You dare think you can change the fate forged by the Fenwick name? Sarah's heart raced. The dagger was her only source of strength. She couldn't back down now, not when the truth was so close. Show yourself. She shouted, voice wavering but fierce. If I am to face my fate, let me see you. The shadowed figure revealed nothing more but an outstretched hand, beckoning her forward. Fear mingled with resolve, a visceral intensifying battle of wills. She could feel the chains of past generations surrounding her, tightening like a noose. Will you break them, or let them pull you under? In that moment, the room erupted with deafening shrieks from the depths. The walls seemed to pulse, the ground threatening to split open again. And as the echoes reverberated in her mind, Sarah braced herself for the inevitable showdown. But the chilling question danced on her lips: what if saving her family meant losing herself? The shadows closed in, darkness swirling with uncertainty, and she took a breath, ready for whatever would come next. But could she truly conquer the darkness, or was her fate sealed within its grasp? The darkness thickened around Sarah, a tangible force pressing against her chest. She could feel the weight of her ancestors' despair as it wrapped around her, pulling her closer to the figure with the outstretched hand. The dagger trembled in her grip, sensing the tempest swirling inside her. She needed to make a choice now. Face the truth. The shadow hissed, its voice reverberating through her skull. The spectral hands continued to claw at the earth, desperate and clawing, each one echoing memories of betrayal and sorrow. Sarah stumbled back, fighting to take a breath. What truth? What must I face? Her voice cracked, but she stood firm against the onslaught of voices. Your bloodline is a tapestry woven with darkness, the figure said, slowly stepping into a thin beam of light that penetrated the shadows. The outline of a face emerged, crowned by tangled hair, eyes burning bright with malevolence. You are destined to pay the price for their sins. Chills raced down her spine, her instincts screaming that there was a truth buried within these shadows that she could not afford to ignore. The dagger pulsed in her hand, thrumming with energy. Take a leap, Sarah. The voice turned slightly softer, a coaxing call woven into the chaos. You were chosen. You have the power to break the cycle. Sarah's heart beat wildly in her chest. Layers of darkness surrounded her ancestors, their eyes pleading, filled with a hope she didn't know how to grasp. But what if breaking the curse meant becoming one of them? No. I want to choose my own path. She cried out, but deep down, doubt gnawed at her. Did she possess the strength to defy their legacy? The shadow advanced, the light barely illuminating its terrifying visage. You think you can sculpt your fate with a mere dagger? You belong to us. You cannot escape what was written before you took your first breath. Then, without warning, the ground quaked beneath her feet. Tombstones splintered, and the wails of her ancestors turned into a soul-piercing choir. Shadows erupted from the graves, rising like smoke, enveloping her in a suffocating mist. Listen to us. We are the truth, and only through us can you free yourself. Their faces twisted in agony, calling to her, connecting their fates and hers like strings tugging at her heart. For a fleeting moment, she felt their anguish flood her senses, thousands of nights filled with weeping, regret, and an endless search for redemption. Stop. She clutched the dagger tighter, muscles straining against the oppressive force. I won't accept your fate. I will not repeat your mistakes. Suddenly, her resolve ignited within her chest. The dagger glowed fiercely, illuminating the dark expanse around her. She lifted it high, the blade casting sharp shadows against the encroaching darkness. If darkness is what binds us, then let my light break the chains. With a determined shout, she plunged the dagger into the ground. An explosive burst of energy erupted, radiating outward like ripples on water. The shadows shrieked in terror as light illuminated the fog. The specters recoiled, and the tombstones trembled, but as the light flourished, the figure lunged forward, catching her by surprise. Foolish girl. It snarled, eyes blazing with rage. You think you can defy the past? As Sarah held her ground, a searing pain shot through her arm where the dagger met the earth, dark tendrils began to twist around her like a serpent. She felt the weight of history pressing down, the pulse of her ancestors hammering against her own will. Get off me! She growled, struggling against the binding dark forces. Her vision blurred, reality shifting around her as she fought to maintain her grasp on the dagger. The warmth it offered wavered, slipping through her fingers like sand. Then, from beneath the chaos, a chilling laugh erupted. You think you are special? The shadow loomed ever closer, determined, hungry for her defeat. Your blood is tied to this curse. You are nothing without the darkness. With trembling hands, Sarah rallied her thoughts. Was she truly nothing? Am I just a vessel for your failures? She screamed, throwing everything she had into one last desperate plea. You won't take me. As she willed the dagger to respond, a fierce light erupted, blinding in its intensity. The scream of her ancestors crescendoed, conflicting, as the shadows recoiled, but in that moment of fury the figure lunged, and everything went black. Was this the end of her fight? Or had she truly awakened something ancient, something that would seal her family's fate for all time? The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a shroud, suffocating her spirit. She struggled, gasping for breath, but it felt like the very air had solidified, trapping her in place. Memories whirled in her mind, the laughter of her childhood, the warmth of her mother's embrace, and the bitter pain of betrayal intermingling with love. They melded into a torrent, each emotion tugging at her heartstrings, urging her to fight. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced the void, illuminating her surroundings with an unearthly glow. Sarah's vision cleared. She found herself in a vast space filled with swirling energy, alive with the screams and whispers of her ancestors, the Fenwick family trapped in their own turmoil. Shadows shifted and danced, yet she could sense their despair transforming into expectation, all eyes on her. Sarah, a phantom voice called, deeper than the abyss, resonating through her very being. You are the key to our release. You hold our fate. Her heart raced, realization crashing down like a tidal wave. They were right. In this moment, she understood the sacrifice. It wasn't just about her, it was about everything they had endured, the pain they bore, the curse they couldn't escape. The thought shook her to the core, and the idea of joining them filled her with dread. I won't let your darkness dictate my future. She shouted defiantly, brandishing the dagger still gripped in her hand. The shadows hissed in anger, swirling ominously around her. You think your light can break us? The figure taunted, its visage flickering between sorrow and malice. You are bound by blood. Choose to join or be consumed. No. Sarah cried, her resolve hardening like forged steel. She realized then the power rested not just in the dagger, but within her. This was her moment to choose, to forge a new path. She had to break the cycle not by condemning her ancestors but by embracing their stories, rewriting their endings. With one thrust, she plunged the dagger into the ground again, channeling her heart into the earth. A pulse of light erupted, cascading through the shadows. Memories swirled around her, breaking free scenes of joy, heartache, betrayal. They all rushed forth in an overwhelming embrace, each one releasing the suffocating grip of the past. Release us! Echoed her ancestors, each shadow gaining shape, conflicted emotions dancing across their hollow faces. Only through you can we be free. Sarah felt their collective pain surge through her, but rather than let it bind her, she transformed it into a fierce light, pure and unyielding. I will carry your stories, and in turn, I will set you free. She roared, the dagger glowing brightly. With a burst of energy, she willed the shadows back, feeling the darkness recoil from her luminescence. The past will not consume me. I will not be defined by your failures. As light exploded outward, the shadows began to dissipate. She felt a weight lifting, the anguished faces of her ancestors softening into acceptance, their screams morphing into whispers of gratitude. They were free, transcending into the light of understanding, and in that moment, Sarah understood, their legacy was hers to mold, and the chains that had bound them were finally broken. A calm washed over her, one she hadn't realized she needed. Each breath grew lighter, each heartbeat stronger. The shadows melted into sparkles, drifting like embers into the infinite. The oppressive energy transformed into warmth, igniting a newfound hope within her soul. In the attic, the scene shifted, the ominous atmosphere replaced by a serene glow. Sarah stood alone, the remnants of history whispering goodbye. The dagger shimmered in her hand, a tool of liberation now, not only for herself, but for generations past. Thank you, she breathed, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. I will honor your memories. With that promise echoing in her heart, she stepped back from the abyss, feeling the embrace of her family wrapping around her, not with anger, but with love and forgiveness. Outside, dawn broke, bathing Maplewood in soft light. Sarah faced the rising sun, reborn from the ashes of her past. She was no longer just a part of the Fenwick curse, she was now a beacon of change. As she walked toward her home, a newfound strength surged in her veins. The shadows had retreated, and though the past would always be part of her, the future now belonged to her. She would tell their stories, weave a new tapestry of resilience, and illuminate the darkness for generations to come. This was the end of the curse, but the beginning of something far greater. You need to subscribe now to join us on our next journey into the unknown. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help the channel thrive. Don't wait even one more second to flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions. What did you think of Sarah's journey? And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Together, we unravel tales that need to be told.